Hi, this is Heidi Jacobs with Slap Stuff Together. Last year, for Carver's first year, we decided to do a photography series once a month. At 7 months old, we decided to choose the theme of Zelda. We carried that theme into Halloween. Ben created a mask for me, and I created a mask for Ben, and we just kept the getup that we created for Carver. Ben made the shield and sword, and they became a hit on Etsy. So this last order we decided would be a good project to show a YouTube build for. Hope you enjoy. Subscribe and comment below.
Hey guys, Ben here. So I'm making the shield. I wanted to make it bigger than the shield that you saw in those photos during the intro. So I laminated two boards together to get the width I needed. And I just drew out the shield using a straight edge. And I also drew the design that's in the middle of the shield. Looks like a weird Y. And then I went over to the bandsaw and I cut out the outside of the shield. Then I went back to the table saw. I don't have a workbench yet. And I used various gouges to carve out the shape in the middle. You could do this with a router. It'd be a lot faster. But I wanted to challenge myself, and I also thought the toll marks would make it look cooler in the end. This part did take a while. I'd say the whole shield maybe took like, I don't know, 3 hours or so to do, and the vast majority of the time was carving out this design. I use those little pucks to help keep the piece in place because I don't have a proper workbench just yet. And then I just sanded it smooth a little bit, not enough to remove any of the toll marks. And here I used a mixture of hand planes and a rasp to shape the outside of the shield. And I also used the orbital sander to sand everything smooth. And then to add the red color, I just took some spray painted over the design in the middle. And then I used the orbital sander to sand over the top so that just the red in the design is left behind. And to make it look more like the Deku shield, I put burnt marks inside the face of the shield to just give it that look. Then I sand it over to kind of like blend all the burn marks. And when you spray the spray lacquer on the shield, which I'm about to do here, it really brings out the burn marks. After this, all that's really left is to put a handle on the back so someone can hold it like a shield. So this is Heidi cutting out the pieces we need for the handle. And it's pretty much just going to be a dowel between two blocks of wood. So she's at the drill press now, cutting out holes for the dowel. And then her at the disc sander, just rounding over the corners. I'd like to get Heidi more involved in the woodworking portions of the shop here. Look how happy she is. And she's just gluing the dowel to the two end pieces, clamping it till it dries, and then drilling out pilot holes for the screws to screw it to the shield. And then just using the appropriate length screws to screw it down to the shield. We also countersunk the holes so the screw heads don't stick out of the end pieces. And after that, the shield is done. We just move on to the sword. I drew it out. Now I'm cutting it out on the bandsaw. I am using a pretty thick blade, mainly used for like resawing and things of that nature. I don't have a thin blade used for curves. If I did, it would make this part a lot easier, but I still managed. And those two end pieces for the guard, I just cut off and then I'll glue them back on later. I was just worried about them getting in the way of when I go to shape the blade. And I used I shaped the whole blade with a rasp and sanding as well. I just thought I'd have more control in taking it to a belt sander. It did take longer though. A lot longer. I did the same thing with the handle. And I wanted to make the guard and the pommel thicker. So I resawed some of the leftover poplar I had in half, and then I cut out the guard shape and the pommel shape, and then I glued them onto the sword to make those parts a little bit thicker than the rest of the sword. And then after I glued those up and let it dry, I grabbed a rasp and I shaped the pommel and the guard to their final shapes. Here I mixed together some watercolor paint and vinegar to make my own wood dye. And it worked pretty good. And then I went to painting on the blade. I did an undercoat of black. And then I did some metallic. And when I sprayed it with spray lacquer, it kind of like ate away just a little bit of the silver of the metallic spray paint, so you can kind of see the black underneath, and it gave it a more realistic metal look in the end. I'm just spraying some spray lacquer on the hilt. Then I didn't show it, but I drilled 2 holes and then epoxied in those plastic jewels inside the blade guard. At first, what I did was I just epoxied over those copper pieces, but they kind of look crappy just sitting on top like that, and you can still get like scratched on the edge of the metal. So I just took them off. That's why the finish is scraped there. And then I decided to inlay these pieces. And I never did inlay before, so this is my first crack at it. And I used chisels. It'd be more optimal to do this before you glued in the jewel, but there it is. I thought it turned out pretty good for my first time doing it. And there they are, all finished. Thanks for watching.
Did the head tilt thing.